Have you ever looked up at the night sky and wondered what ancient civilizations saw when they gazed at the stars? Imagine a people so attuned to the heavens that their temples, calendars, and very concept of time were mapped according to celestial cycles. The Mayans, a remarkable Mesoamerican civilization spread across modern-day Mexico, Guatemala, Belize, Honduras, and El Salvador, were not only master builders and mathematicians, but also some of the most sophisticated astronomers the world has ever known. Their deep knowledge of the cosmos was not a coincidence, nor was it mere superstition. It was the result of careful, systematic observation, spiritual conviction, and an astonishing dedication to understanding their place in the universe. In this video, we'll explore why the Mayans knew so much about the cosmos, diving into their sacred cities, their ritual practices, and the tools and beliefs that allowed them to track the movements of the stars with near-modern precision. Long before telescopes, satellites, or modern science, the Maya charted the sky using nothing but their eyes, their faith, and their genius. But why did they care so much? Why did a people living in dense jungles and stepped pyramids devote so much effort to studying celestial bodies? The answer, as we'll see, lies in a unique fusion of religion, survival, empire building, and identity. One where the heavens weren't just distant lights, but gods themselves, guiding every decision from planting crops to declaring war. The Maya began their journey toward astronomical mastery thousands of years ago. As early as 500 BCE, they had inherited and expanded upon the knowledge of the Olmecs, who were among the first to develop a calendar system and use hieroglyphic writing. But the Maya took this inheritance further, refining it into one of the most accurate pre-modern calendar systems in human history. They observed the motion of the sun, the moon, Venus, and other planets with incredible precision, recording their observations in codices, folded bark paper books filled with complex glyphs and astronomical tables. Although most of these codices were tragically destroyed during the Spanish conquest, a few, like the Dresden Codex, survived and reveal the staggering depth of Mayan astronomical knowledge. In these texts, the Mayans charted solar and lunar eclipses, tracked the synodic cycle of Venus, 584 days, and predicted celestial events centuries into the future. Their long-count calendar famously marked the end of a major cycle on December 21, 2012, a date that sparked modern myths about the apocalypse but, in truth, simply signaled the end of one world age and the beginning of another in the Mayan cosmological cycle. To understand why the Maya studied the stars so intensely, we must consider the central role of religion in their society. For the Maya, the sky was not just a backdrop. It was a divine realm filled with powerful beings. The sun god, Kinich Ahau, and the moon goddess, Ixchel, were central figures in their mythology. Venus, which they associated with the god Kukulkan or Quetzalcoatl, was seen as a harbinger of war and rebirth. Every movement in the sky was interpreted as a message or command from the gods, and the priests, or Ajay Kuhun, served as mediators who translated these celestial messages for kings and commoners alike. Mayan rulers often claimed divine right based on astronomical events, such as an eclipse or the heliacal rising of Venus, to assert their authority. This intertwining of religion and astronomy gave the Maya both spiritual and political reasons to perfect their knowledge of the stars. But their motivation wasn't purely ceremonial, it was also practical. Agriculture, the foundation of the Mayan economy, depended on the accurate prediction of seasonal changes. By observing the sun's position on the horizon at different times of the year, the Maya could determine the best times to plant and harvest crops like maize, beans, and squash. Temples and observatories were often aligned with solar events such as equinoxes and solstices. One striking example is El Castillo at Chichen Itza, where, during the spring and autumn equinoxes, shadows create the illusion of a serpent descending the steps, likely representing Kukulkan. This alignment was not just for show, it was a cosmic clock. Moreover, cities like Oxmal and Copan featured dedicated observatories such as the Caracol at Chichen Itza, with window placements that perfectly framed key celestial events. These structures were designed with an understanding of geometry and perspective that suggests generations of observational refinement. The level of precision the Maya achieved in calculating solar years, 365.2420 days, rivals modern calculations, 365.2402 days, an astonishing feat for a culture without telescopes or metal tools. They even calculated the lunar month and eclipse cycles with extraordinary accuracy, enabling them to predict lunar eclipses across long spans of time. It is this intense observational rigor, passed down through generations of skywatchers, that gave the Maya a cosmic reputation. Yet perhaps what's most fascinating is how they visualized time itself. Unlike the linear view of time embraced in the modern West, the Mayan concept of time was cyclical. They believed in repeating cycles of creation and destruction, a view reflected in their calendar systems. The Tzolkin, a 260-day sacred calendar, was used for ritual purposes, while the Hab, a 365-day solar calendar, governed the civil year. These two calendars interlocked like gears to form a 52-year calendar round, a cycle after which a specific day would repeat. Beyond that, the long count calendar was used to record historical and mythological events on a scale of thousands of years, rooting Mayan civilization in both cosmic eternity and daily experience. This view of time fostered a deep sense of connection between the earthly and the celestial. For the Maya, every action, be it building a temple, crowning a king, or harvesting a field, was anchored in a cosmic context. Events on Earth had to mirror events in the heavens, maintaining harmony and balance. This is why stelae and altars were erected to commemorate not just political victories, but celestial alignments. Every act was a reenactment of a mythological precedent, a synchronization of human life with the divine order of the stars. As we delve deeper into this extraordinary civilization, we begin to see that their interest in astronomy was more than scientific curiosity. It was a cultural compass, a spiritual contract, and a societal scaffold. Their cosmos was a living organism, where gods moved in cycles, and each person played a part in the cosmic dance. Even warfare, city planning, and royal births were timed according to celestial phenomena. By aligning their lives with the movements of the heavens, the Maya believed they could ensure prosperity, peace, and divine favor. This sense of cosmic duty permeated all aspects of life, from the humblest farmer to the mightiest king. What emerges is a portrait of a civilization that didn't just observe the sky, they lived it. Their legacy endures not only in ancient ruins and dusty codices, but in the very way we think about time, space, and human potential. The enduring mystery of how the Maya attained such advanced cosmic knowledge lies not in isolated brilliance, but in their societal structure, where knowledge was collective, sacred, and intergenerational. The role of the priest-astronomer was central, not just a scholar, but a guide, a spiritual leader, and a political advisor. These individuals often came from elite lineages, trained from a young age in the complex systems of hieroglyphics, calendrics, and skywatching techniques. Their knowledge was kept within families or specific lineages, ensuring consistency and refinement over centuries. The Maya believed that certain individuals were chosen by the gods to interpret celestial will. And this divine selection endowed astronomy with a mystical aura that elevated it above mere observation. It was a sacred science, deeply integrated into the mythology and ritual life of the people. Cities like Palenque, Tikal, and Yaxchilan were not just urban centers, they were cosmic diagrams. Their layouts were designed to mirror celestial constellations or cardinal directions, turning every city into a sacred landscape that reflected the order of the heavens. Temples were constructed on specific dates, aligned with solstices, planetary risings, or eclipses, reinforcing the idea that the divine order above must be reflected in the earthly realm below. Inscriptions and murals within these temples often depict rulers interacting with celestial beings or undergoing rituals timed with astronomical events, showing that political power was inseparable from cosmic timing. These acts were not symbolic. They were believed to influence reality, ensuring the success of harvests, wars, or alliances through precise cosmic alignment. The story of the Mayan cosmos is also told through their mythology. In the Popol Vuh, one of the most important surviving texts of Mayan mythology, the hero twins Hunahpu and Xbalanque journey through the underworld and undergo a series of trials before being transformed into the sun and the moon. This tale does more than entertain. It encodes the Mayan understanding of duality, death, rebirth, and celestial cycles. The hero twins' transformations into celestial bodies signify the eternal connection between myth and astronomy in Mayan thought. Such stories, passed down orally and later recorded by scribes, were not merely cultural artifacts. They were encoded cosmologies, metaphors for celestial cycles, and mnemonic devices for the timing of rituals and predictions. The Maya also held a unique fascination with Venus, far beyond what other ancient civilizations achieved. To them, Venus was not just a star. It was a god of war and fate, influencing the most important decisions of state. They tracked its synodic cycle with meticulous care, recording its heliacal risings and settings with astonishing precision. Events such as battles or sacrifices were often scheduled based on Venus's position in the sky. This level of reverence shows how deeply they perceived the stars as active agents in their world. Unlike modern astronomy, which often separates science from meaning, the Maya saw no such division. Science was meaning, numbers were sacred, time was divine. Their vigesimal, base 20 counting system, likely inspired by finger and toe counting, enabled sophisticated calculations, including large astronomical cycles. The number 13, representing the layers of the heavens, and 9, symbolizing the underworld, frequently appeared in their numerology and temple designs. These numbers weren't chosen arbitrarily. They were cosmological constants, symbols embedded into the very fabric of their civilization. The integration of numerical systems with spiritual beliefs created a model where numbers became more than tools. They were keys to the divine order. Even death and burial were tied to celestial cycles. Elite tombs were often aligned with specific star patterns or planetary events. Kings were sometimes buried beneath structures that symbolically placed them at the center of the cosmos, ensuring their rebirth among the stars. Inscriptions would declare their transformation into celestial entities, further emphasizing the cyclical view of time and life. For the Maya, death was not an end but a return, a re-entry into the cosmic rhythm. Modern archaeologists and epigraphers continue to uncover new layers of this cosmic vision. The rediscovery of Mayan codices, the decipherment of glyphs, and the excavation of observatories have only deepened our appreciation for their intellectual achievements. Yet, What's perhaps most remarkable is that Mayan descendants today still carry fragments of this celestial legacy. In remote villages, traditional daykeepers continue to use the tzolk'in to guide community rituals, weddings, and agricultural work. These spiritual guides blend ancient knowledge with modern life, proving that the Mayan cosmos was never truly lost. It merely adapted, surviving conquest, colonization, and centuries of silence. In this continuity, we find a powerful testament to resilience. A civilization's deepest wisdom can endure, not just in stone or scripture, but in the rhythms of daily life. And what of the infamous 2012 phenomenon? The misinterpretation of the Mayan long count calendar as predicting the end of the world in December 2012 was more a reflection of modern anxieties than Mayan prophecy. To the Maya, the completion of a Baktun, approximately 394 solar years, was a moment of renewal, not destruction. It marked the end of a cosmic cycle and the beginning of another. Far from fearing the date, Anit Chit Mayan texts celebrated it. It was a time for rituals, rebirth, and realignment with celestial forces. That the modern world turned it into an apocalyptic myth only underscores how disconnected we've become from the cyclical view of time that once governed entire civilizations. The true meaning of 2012, then, wasn't doom. It was a call to remember that time is not a straight line, but a spiral, always returning, always renewing. The Maya knew this intimately. They had built entire worlds upon that idea. Their pyramids were mountains of time, their codices, books of the stars, their lives synchronized with the sky. And in that deep synchronization, they achieved a level of cosmic understanding that remains awe-inspiring even today. Their legacy invites us to look up not with fear or detachment, but with wonder and humility, remembering that we, too, are part of the same vast and mysterious cosmos. The stars that guided them still shine above us. The patterns they followed still unfold in our skies. And perhaps, by looking back at their knowledge, we can begin to rediscover a way of seeing the universe, not as a distant machine, but as a living story, in which we all play a part. The Mayan fascination with the cosmos also gave rise to one of the most sophisticated calendar systems in the ancient world, so accurate and multifaceted that even modern scientists marvel at its complexity. The Maya didn't rely on a single calendar, but instead developed an interlocking system of multiple calendars to track both sacred and solar time. The Tzolk'in, a 260-day ritual calendar, was paired with the Hab, a 365-day solar calendar, to create a calendar round cycle of 18,980 days, about 52 solar years, at the end of which the same combination of dates would recur. This alignment of time was not only symbolic, but practical, as it governed everything from agricultural rituals and ceremonial festivals to political decisions and dynastic events. But for the Maya, the most powerful expression of cosmic time was the long count calendar, which tracked time in units far beyond human lifespans, marking vast cycles of cosmic significance that could span thousands of years. Through this system, the Maya traced their place in history and myth, embedding their civilization within the rhythms of the universe. Every stela, every inscription in a temple courtyard, was not simply a record of a king's deed or a city's triumph. It was a timestamp of cosmic alignment, anchoring human events to celestial cycles. This profound concept of time shaped their worldview, their architecture, and even their psychology, creating a society where destiny and cosmos were inseparably linked. One might wonder how such a vast and interconnected astronomical system could be preserved across generations, especially in an era without printing presses, digital backups, or global institutions? The answer lies in the Mayas' devotion to oral tradition, ritual practice, and visual symbolism. Knowledge was passed not just through texts, but through ceremonial reenactments, priestly training, and public displays of cosmic events. The elite class of scribes and astronomer priests ensured continuity, but so too did the daily lives of ordinary Mayans, who aligned their festivals, marriages, and planting seasons with the movements of the sky. Their collective memory was cyclical, reinforced not just by records, but by rhythm. It is this deep, embodied memory, carried in rituals, architecture, and community customs, that allowed Mayan astronomy to survive despite conquests and disruptions. And while many of the original codices were destroyed by conquistadors or Catholic missionaries in the 16th century, labeling them as pagan or demonic, the essence of Mayan astronomical thinking was already deeply rooted in the very stones and ceremonies of their culture. What the colonizers could not erase was the lived expression of time and sky, patterns too ancient and sacred to be broken by force. Another testament to their genius lies in their architectural mastery. The design of Mayan cities wasn't accidental or merely aesthetic. It was a blueprint of the heavens on earth. Observatories like El Caracol at Chichen Itza, with its round tower and carefully positioned windows, were clearly designed to mark astronomical phenomena such as the solstices, equinoxes, and the movements of Venus. In other cities, entire ceremonial centers were built in alignment with constellations or the cardinal directions, creating spaces that mirrored the structure of the cosmos. For instance, at Oaxacan, one of the earliest known Mayan cities, archaeologists have discovered observatory structures that align perfectly with the sunrise on key days of the year, indicating a clear understanding of solar cycles even in the pre-classic period. These alignments weren't just for practical timekeeping, they were spiritual acts, grounding divine patterns in the soil of human civilization. To walk through a Mayan city was to traverse a sacred map, where each step echoed the movement of a god, and each plaza served as a stage for celestial drama. Even the ball game, a central ritual in Mayan culture, had astronomical implications, played in ceremonial courts often oriented along cosmological lines. The game symbolized the eternal struggle between day and night, life and death, sun and underworld. Victories and defeats in the ball game were reflections of cosmic forces, with players often seen as avatars of celestial bodies reenacting the myths of creation and resurrection. This cosmic theater underscored the deep interconnection between the heavens and daily life. The game was more than entertainment. It was a sacred rite, aligning human action with the will of the stars. At the heart of the Mayan cosmic model was the conviction that harmony could only be maintained through balance between humans and gods, earth and sky, death and rebirth. The heavens provided the pattern, and society mirrored that order. It's this worldview that enabled them to achieve such remarkable precision, for they believed that understanding the cosmos wasn't a luxury, it was a necessity. The stability of the universe depended on human recognition of its cycles, and in return, the stars granted prosperity, power, and divine favor. This reciprocal relationship made the study of the sky both a duty and a privilege. And while the Maya developed this knowledge in isolation from old-world civilizations, they reached conclusions that rivaled or even surpassed their Eurasian counterparts. When we compare their astronomical calculations with those of the Babylonians, Greeks, or Chinese, we see remarkable parallels. And yet the Maya had no telescopes, no iron tools, and no contact with other ancient observatories. Their achievements were homegrown, the product of sustained attention, deep spiritual insight, and intergenerational dedication. In this light, the Maya remind us of what is possible when a civilization truly commits to understanding its world, not just materially, but metaphysically. Today, as we grapple with questions of time, space, and existence, the Maya offer a different lens. They teach us that science and spirit are not enemies but companions, that data and meaning can coexist. Their legacy is not only in what they discovered, but in how they discovered it, through reverence, rhythm, and relationship. Even modern astronomers acknowledge the sophistication of Mayan star charts and eclipse tables, some of which rival or predate similar efforts in Europe or the Islamic world. Scholars continue to decode their glyphs and calibrate their calendars, and with each discovery, the admiration grows. We now know that the Maya predicted solar eclipses with a methodical accuracy that is stunning even by modern standards. They identified planetary cycles, especially those of Mars and Jupiter, and may have even understood aspects of lunar regression and nodal points, concepts that form the foundation of contemporary orbital mechanics. And yet, for all their technical precision, the Maya never lost sight of meaning. The sky was never merely a subject to be dissected, it was a living scroll, unfolding divine wisdom night after night. Their observations were prayers in motion, inscriptions made with eyes and hearts instead of ink. In this, the Maya challenge our modern tendency to separate knowledge from soul. They ask us to remember that, to truly understand the cosmos, we must not only measure it, but feel it, live it, honor it. This is why their legacy endures, not just because of what they knew, but because of how they knew it. The resonance of Mayan cosmic knowledge extends far beyond history books and archaeological digs. In recent decades, scientists, anthropologists, and indigenous leaders have collaborated to rediscover and revalidate ancestral knowledge systems, recognizing that the ancient wisdom encoded in Mayan astronomy holds relevance even in a modern scientific context. The interdisciplinary fields of archaeoastronomy and ethnoastronomy have flourished precisely because of civilizations like the Maya, people whose observations challenge the notion that sophisticated science only emerged in the industrial or post-Renaissance world. Mayan astronomical alignments, mathematical ratios, and calendar systems are studied in tandem with cutting-edge satellite imagery, revealing intentional geometric precision between pyramids, temples, and sacred landscapes, many of which align not only with solar and planetary events, but also with the movements of constellations and even the Milky Way itself. In this light, Mayan observatories such as those at Copan, Izapa, and Xochicalco take on renewed significance, not simply as ruins, but as sacred instruments of cosmic navigation. When examined carefully, it becomes clear that these structures were less like passive buildings and more like tools, functioning timepieces, horizon markers, and cosmic altars that rendered the sky readable to those trained in its language. This reinforces a powerful idea. The Maya were not just observers, they were interpreters. They didn't merely watch the stars, they dialogued with them. They listened. And in doing so, they wrote a story of the cosmos that still echoes in our own efforts to understand space and time. Their mythologies, often misunderstood or dismissed by early Western scholars, are increasingly being seen as complex cosmological frameworks, rich with metaphor, layered with encoded scientific data, and deeply integrated with psychological and agricultural cycles. The creation myth told in the Popol Vuh, for example, is not merely a tale of divine twins and underworld lords. It is also a symbolic representation of the sun's journey through darkness and light, of planetary conjunctions, and of human renewal. Every element, the maize god, the great flood, the cosmic tree, is rooted in observable celestial patterns. For the Maya, myth was not fantasy. It was memory. It was explanation. It was astronomy in poetic form. And within this poetic tradition lies one of the most enduring elements of their genius: the capacity to bind science and spirit, sky and soil, time and transcendence into one coherent worldview. As Western science begins to explore concepts like dark matter, multiverses, and the quantum fabric of time, perhaps it is no coincidence that ancient systems like the Mayan cosmos are being re-examined. The cyclical nature of Mayan time, their belief in vast epochs and resets, their concept of multiple worlds and layered realities, these ideas no longer sound foreign. They sound prophetic. They sound compatible with emerging theories that suggest the universe may be more recursive, dynamic, and interdependent than previously believed. The Mayan worldview reminds us that wisdom is not always linear, and that looking back can be a way of looking forward. Their patience, the sheer centuries of accumulated starlight inscribed into architecture and story, teaches us the value of slowness in a world obsessed with speed. The Maya did not rush knowledge. They waited. They watched. They calibrated. They returned to the same spot, generation after generation, watching Venus rise and fall, waiting for an eclipse that wouldn't come again for decades. They understood that to truly know the universe, one must first be willing to listen in silence, to participate in rhythms larger than the human heartbeat. And in this waiting, they cultivated a kind of scientific mindfulness, a profound observational discipline that laid the groundwork for one of humanity's most impressive astronomical traditions. This, too, has implications for how we understand ourselves today. The Mayan concept of the human being was not separate from nature, but woven into it. A person was not a master of the earth or a spectator of the stars. They were an extension of the sky, a living expression of time's unfolding. Rituals, festivals, life events, these were not random or secular. They were tuned to the divine metronome of the cosmos. The day you were born, according to the Tzolk'in, carried a sacred energy, a purpose, a set of traits. Your name, your fate, your vocation, these could be inferred from the celestial moment of your arrival. This deep personalization of time gave meaning and orientation to life. It made every child a cosmic event, every death a return, and every cycle a promise of rebirth. Such thinking challenges the alienation that often characterizes modern life. In a world where many feel disconnected from time, nature, and each other, the Mayan model offers a vision of deep interconnection. It suggests that we are not drifting through an indifferent universe, but dancing within a living one. Our movements, thoughts, and intentions resonating with patterns set in motion before we were born. Their example challenges us to reclaim that connection, to slow down and realign ourselves with the cycles that once guided all human activity. And perhaps most moving of all is the simple fact that the Mayan cosmos still lives, not as a museum piece, but as a living heritage. In the highlands of Guatemala, in the forests of Chiapas, in the oral traditions of Yucatec, Quiche, and Quechua speakers, the stars are still watched, the days still counted, the ceremonies still performed. The sacred fire still burns. Mayan daykeepers and elders continue to guide communities with the same calendars their ancestors used to chart the heavens. These modern stewards of ancient time are not relics. They are the living thread of one of humanity's most luminous legacies. They embody a continuity that colonialism, modernity, and even globalization have not extinguished. In their voices and visions we hear the echo of kings and astronomers, of warriors and weavers, all gazing at the same sky, all asking the same eternal question. What does it mean to live in harmony with the cosmos? In reflecting upon the profound depth of Mayan astronomical wisdom, one must also recognize how this legacy was nearly silenced by conquest and colonization. The arrival of Spanish forces in the 16th century marked not only the fall of cities like Tikal and Uxmal, but also a brutal suppression of the very knowledge systems that had defined the Maya for millennia. Priests and missionaries, convinced of their spiritual superiority, burned codices, smashed idols, and built churches atop sacred sites. In a single generation, libraries of celestial knowledge, painstakingly assembled over centuries, were reduced to ashes. Yet even amidst this destruction, fragments endured. The resilience of Mayan knowledge was not stored solely in books, but etched into stone, whispered in ceremonies, encoded in the alignment of buildings and in the rhythm of rituals. This ability to embed cosmic knowledge within cultural practice proved vital to its survival. Though much was lost, enough remained to rekindle interest centuries later, as modern researchers and indigenous scholars began the slow process of deciphering glyphs and decoding the sky once more. What they found was not a primitive or mystical worldview, but a deeply rational, highly structured understanding of the cosmos, one that rivaled, and in some cases surpassed, those of contemporary civilizations across the globe. And even as we uncover more about the Mayans' precise observations of planetary motion, eclipse cycles, equinoxes, and solstices, the greater lesson may lie in their worldview, a model of science that does not dissect the world into parts, but weaves all things into a living tapestry. Their cosmos was not compartmentalized. It was one flowing system, where physics, philosophy, farming, and faith all intersected under the sky. To understand this, we need only look at how the Maya approached daily life. Every activity, whether planting a field or declaring a war, was timed according to celestial rhythms. The sky was the ultimate calendar, and reading it correctly meant living in harmony with divine cycles. Their agricultural festivals weren't merely celebratory, they were strategic, timed with lunar and solar patterns to ensure fertility and abundance. Their warfare was often aligned with Venus's appearance, and their political rituals occurred during significant astronomical conjunctions. Nothing was left to chance. Everything had a time, and every time had a meaning. In this lies a powerful idea, that wisdom is not simply the accumulation of facts, but the integration of knowledge into the rhythm of life. The Mayans did not observe the sky just to measure it. They lived by it. Their understanding was both scientific and spiritual, personal and political, intimate and infinite. They believed that every moment echoed with celestial resonance, and that each human life, like each star, had a place within the cosmic order. And while we now possess tools far more advanced, telescopes that peer billions of light-years into space, probes that fly beyond planets, and equations that model the birth of galaxies, we still grapple with the same questions the Maya asked, with naked eyes, under open skies. What is our place in the universe? How do we align ourselves with forces larger than us? What does it mean to be in balance with the cosmos? Their answers, carved in stone and carried in story, offer not final conclusions, but luminous guidance. The temples they built still catch the light of solstices. The cities they planned still whisper of stars. The myths they told still reflect the rise and fall of the sun, the moon, and the sacred planet Venus. They invite us not only to study the universe, but to enter into a relationship with it, a relationship based on respect, reciprocity, and wonder. In this way, the legacy of Mayan astronomy is not a closed chapter of the past, but a living script for the future. It challenges us to reunite what we have divided: science and soul, sky and earth, intellect and intuition. It reminds us that the cosmos is not just out there. It is within us, around us, above us, and beneath us. Every cycle we witness in the sky is also mirrored in the breath we take, the seasons we experience, the dreams we carry. And perhaps this is the greatest wisdom the Maya offer us today: that to know the stars is to know ourselves, and that in remembering the sky, we remember what it means to be human. The path they walked was one of attention and reverence. They spent lifetimes watching the slow dance of celestial bodies, tracking their rhythms, honoring their returns. Their cities, calendars, and myths all speak to a civilization that found in the stars not only direction, but connection. And though centuries have passed since their peak, and though the night sky is now veiled by electric light and urban haze, their teachings endure. They call us to look up, not in fear, not in confusion, but in awe. They urge us to remember that, above every temple, above every field, above every life, the cosmos continues its song. And if we learn to listen as they once did, we may yet find our place within it. And so, as we arrive at the conclusion of this journey through the Mayan cosmos, we do not end, we return. Just as the Maya saw time not as a line, but as a circle, this exploration brings us back to our own lives, our own skies, our own questions. The brilliance of Mayan astronomy was never simply in what they observed, but in the way they allowed those observations to shape how they lived, believed, and understood their world. Their knowledge was not detached data. It was living wisdom. Their star charts were not separate from their ceremonies, their architecture not separate from their myths, their numbers not separate from their gods. Everything was part of a unified whole, each element reinforcing the others in a dance of balance and cosmic reflection. Even today, when we walk through the ruins of Tikal or stand before the stepped pyramids of Chichen Itza, we are not merely tourists in an ancient city. We are guests in a great astronomical cathedral. Every stone speaks, every alignment whispers. These were not static monuments, but dynamic instruments, tuned to the cosmos, calibrated by generations of patient minds and observant hearts. The Maya remind us that greatness is not built in haste, and that the deepest truths are often found not in the rush to dominate, but in the quiet discipline of watching and listening. As modern life becomes ever more frenetic and fragmented, their message grows clearer. We are still part of the same universe. The stars above us are unchanged. The cycles endure. And though we have the power to fly to the moon or map the surface of Mars, we must not forget how to be still beneath the sky. We must not forget how to wonder, because wonder, for the Maya, was the first science. Their curiosity was sacred. Their precision was prayer. Their legacy is a bridge between the past and the future, between ancient mystery and modern knowledge. It teaches us that the most powerful civilizations are not always the ones that conquer, but the ones that understand. Not just understand the material, but the meaningful. The Mayans didn't just measure the stars, they interpreted them. They found stories in their orbits, guidance in their return, reassurance in their regularity. And they used those insights to create a civilization that, in its own time and way, was nothing short of extraordinary. It was a civilization that charted the heavens, honored the cycles of time, and lived in synchrony with forces far beyond the visible. And even now, long after the last great city fell, their cosmic voice remains. It speaks in carved glyphs and preserved codices. It speaks in modern descendants who keep the calendar and light the sacred fire. It speaks every time we pause to ask what lies beyond, what came before, what moves above us. In honoring that voice, we don't merely study the Maya, we join them. We become part of the same search, the same awe, the same ancient conversation. So tonight, when the sky grows dark and the stars begin to appear, take a moment, step outside, look up, and remember, long before modern astronomy, long before telescopes or satellites, a people once stood where you stand, eyes turned skyward, hearts full of questions, minds open to the infinite. They studied the stars not to escape the world, but to understand their place within it. And in doing so, they left us a legacy of wisdom, rhythm, and reverence that still shines today. This is why the Maya knew so much about the cosmos. Not because they had to, but because they listened, because they believed, because they never forgot that the universe, in all its vastness, speaks to those who are willing to look, to wait, and to wonder. Thank you for watching this video. Click here to check out another interesting video.